Hello.
Whoa, what's happening?
Nothing. Just working. As John makes fun of me.
It's so bright in here. Oh, that's so much better. What where's Johnny boy? Is he right by you?
Come
Hi
here,
John.
people.
What?
What's up, Dean?
What's up, man?
Always making fun of me.
Who is Carly?
Oh, you were making fun of me
I would never.
because I'm wearing glasses.
You look smart.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm sitting with the pro and the bros, so I know if there's something on, look smart.
You don't have to put glasses on to be smarter than me. All right. Where's Heather?
How much she saw me. No one knew I came here after the warehouse this morning, and everyone was really caught off guard. They're like, Carly's here. Carly's here. I was like, oh, it's me. Surprise.
Yeah, I know. They're not used to you being in there. Got all my drinks ready. All right. I was just going over some of the stuff that you
Yeah, I put some questions in there just not too long ago, but mostly some of them were from the Facebook page, but I assume that Heather will cover most of these.
Yeah.
Going through stuff. It's always so funny because the people who are usually on here first, like Josh, Michael Butler, Joshua, like there's so many people that I always see all the time. Like the first one's on here, and I'm always talking to them before like you log on or Seth logs on. And I'm like, I'm literally talking to myself. I'm like, this is so awkward sometimes.
Yeah.
Hello, Heather.
Hi.
Hello, Heather.
I totally kept forgetting about this.
I feel like I should put some sort of glasses on. I'm the only one now.
Yes, just go grab a pair of sunglasses. I don't know, something.
Sunglasses?
Some pit vipers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, what a good look for you. Yes.
Like how you had them like ready, like you knew. Just waiting for your opportunity.
Yes, he wears them in his free time.
Yeah. My natty light ads.
Yes. Yes.
So funny.
Great segue into fat burners.
Yeah. Perfect. Natty light.
I can't believe this is webinar 3 already of at least this segment.
Yeah.
Cool. Heather, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Well, with that said, like I said, this is the third webinar with the pro, the bro, and I guess you have your host here, Carly. They're going to go over fat burners and HWMF transformation challenge stacks. So Heather, once again, has this whole thing set up. Her and Dean are going to go back and forth. If there are some questions that were asked, so we will try to cover most of those at the end. As always, if you have a question, ask it in the Q&A and we'll see what we can get to. But with that being said, Heather, all you.
All right. So yeah, first I want to start off with just the topic of fat burners because I think they kind of get a bad rap in the industry, and I think it's because of the way they're marketed and obviously how they're made and whatnot. So the biggest thing about fat burners is, or the biggest question people ask, probably Dean and I, is like, how do they work? Do fat burners really burn fat? And I think that's a big misconception. It's not like you can take a fat burner and sit on your butt and eat cake all day and expect to lose weight. So at the end of the day, they don't really burn fat, but they do help you lose weight or lose fat, I guess. So it's not, the name's a little misleading in that sense. So the biggest thing fat burners do as a whole is they help you stick to your diet. Or stick to your training plan. So whether that's, most of the time when you're dieting, you're low on calories, you're low on energy, your focus isn't as good, you're hungry, maybe your performance is lacking, things like that. So most fat burners, what they do is they help support your metabolism, they help support energy production, they help support focus and things like that. So you can continue throughout your day and stick to your diet and stick to your training. So that's the biggest thing about fat burners. They're not magic. They're not special pills. They're nothing, but they're just tools that you can use to help guide you along the way. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you still need to be sticking to a good diet, a good training plan, doing cardio, getting enough sleep, managing your stress. Those big rocks need to be taken care of before a fat burner can even do anything for you. So that's the biggest thing I want to touch on before we get into, kind of what fat burners we have to offer and what do they do and whatnot. So it's just kind of a disclaimer of what fat burners are. And Dean, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit on it. It's like the one thing, I mean, over the years, and I'm not even speaking of our fat burners, any fat burners in general, that's what you sometimes you hear people say, like, oh, it didn't work, or and it makes me always think a couple things. It's like, what did you expect it to do? Number one, like you said, some people think it's like a miracle drug that you just take a fat burner and you're going to lose weight, which is definitely not the case. And then the other thing is, like, for that person that says that, sometimes it's like, what were you actually doing? Like you said, is your diet in check? Are you still doing cardio? Are you eating at a huge calorie surplus and you're taking the fat burner thinking that's going to help? So like Heather said, like, all these other items need to kind of be in check and on point for the fat burner to actually help you burn fat. But do fat burners just burn fat? No. I always just say they're like the icing on the cake. They're another tool to have in your, or whatever, in your arsenal that you can throw at the diet plan and help you lose some weight as well. But yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it. Like, everything else needs to be in check. And this is just, to me, it's just another tool to use to assist in losing fat.
Yeah, and I almost like to call them thermogenics versus fat burners. It's a little bit more technical of a term, but most people in the industry know them as fat burners. So, I mean, you could call them either one, but I feel like that's a better name for them, because if they do promote thermogenesis or metabolism or whatever, that's the process of like burning fat, fatty acid, oxidation, stuff like that. That's kind of what you're going for here. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that they're like, oh, people are like, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds. It's like, okay, you want to lose like 30 pounds on the scale. That doesn't necessarily mean you want to just lose 30 pounds altogether, because that could be muscle, it could be water, it could be fat, it could be a combination of all those things. Because I mean, if you could chop your arm off, you just lost 30 pounds. So it's not necessarily how the scale is. It's about losing fat, not losing weight. And that's what I try to, pass along to people all the time. It's because like that's your goal. And a lot of times too, it's kind of going off on a tangent, but like the scale is misleading, because you might be losing weight or losing fat, but building muscle. So the scale isn't really moving. So you might be the same weight, but then all of a sudden in 8 weeks, your body looks a lot different. I think that's why in our transformation challenge, we don't look at the numbers so much. We look at how you've transformed. And I know Carly knows this because she looked at every single person throughout the challenge. And at the end of the day, some of the most biggest transformations, they barely lost any weight, but they made a drastic change in their body composition. So that's just something to note, is that, throughout this process, you want to be focused on not just the scale, but what are what are your energy levels like, your performance, what do you look like in the mirror, and how your clothes fitting, stuff like that. So I just want to touch on that before we dive into the rest of the topic here. But
Yeah, real quick too, I can attest to that big time, especially the last time I prepped for a show, which was 2019. And especially when you're talking about prepping for a show, you're talking about like hardcore dieting. And I had a stretch, I'd have to look back, but it was literally like 4 or 5 weeks of dieting and the scale wasn't moving at all. So that's like, but I'm sending weekly check-in photos and all that. And my coach is like, yeah, you're looking better. You're looking leaner, this and that. Just like you're saying, it's because the scale isn't always the be all end all. And that's what I know for a lot of people, it is a great tool to just see if you're losing weight. But like Heather said, there's a lot of other things you can look at, just how you feel, more energy, looks more than anything, clothes fitting differently and stuff like that are some of the easiest things to look at. But the scale definitely does not always tell the whole picture, and you can definitely be losing body fat and still not, just like the scale can't be making a huge jump.
yeah, and I think another thing I just want to touch on before we dive into the products is that, like, someone asked me on the Q&A on the challenge page for Instagram, was like, oh, well, how do I tell if I'm losing fat and not muscle? And I think the biggest indicator is your performance in the gym. If you're drastically dropping in strength or reps or whatever, like, of course, it's typical throughout a dieting phase, especially if you're getting really lean, that you start to lose strength a bit, but typically you can keep your performance up there. Sometimes people even gain strength and performance as they go throughout a cutting phase, which is a little bit more rare, but it happens. So I think the biggest thing is keep resistance training. Don't drastically cut your calories in half and, ramp up the cardio and do all these crazy tactics, because then you're putting your body in a state that's not, where do you go from there? You're kind of stuck. Because if you're down to like 600 calories a day or something crazy, which I hope not, but like, where do you go from there? Now, yeah, sure, you lost all this weight, but now you're stuck here. So that's another thing, just be, conscious of your decisions and your changes you're making and stuff like that. So, okay. So getting into the fat burners. And so these are really, like I said, they're thermogenics. We have 2 different types that we offer. we have a couple like honorable mentions we'll throw in here too at the end here, but the two main ones that people ask us about is double time and fired. The first one I'm gonna start with is double time, and I'll have Dean kick off like just what is double time, and if you've used it, what do you feel on it and stuff like that.
Yeah, double time, it would be I would say our more, I guess like basic in a way, fat burner be because we'll get into fired here in a second, but fired's obviously more extreme. So double time would be more of your, I guess, everyday fat burner that most people would take. 250 milligrams of caffeine, I guess, per 2 capsules. The big difference too is double time. It's called double time. You can take it twice a day, where when we cover fired, it's more of a 1 time a day fat burner. But the benefits with double time you're going to see is, of course, the energy from the stimulants, caffeine. I feel more appetite suppression on double time as well. And then, of course, focus. You have here some of the benefits too. But that's, to me, it's more of I guess a more milder, long pace throughout the day fat burner that somebody would want to take. But I think I feel personally more appetite suppressant, feeling from double time than I do fired, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would just to piggyback off that. I think double time is great for most users. I would say if you're new to fat burners, or even if you're like, hey, I just need something because I go to the office in the morning or I'm working all day and I need something to help me focus, help, curb my appetite, whatever it may be. I think double time is a little bit more optimal for that, just because of those. We have some different ingredients in there. The key one is Advantra Z that drastically reduces your appetite. In addition to the stimulants, of course, all stimulants reduce your appetite. But I think those two are the key indicators for the appetite suppression. So, and like Dean mentioned, you can split dose it. I don't recommend taking 2 caps in the morning and 2 caps at night or in the afternoon. I would recommend doing 1 and 1. So 1 in the morning, and then if you're dragging a little bit, 1 in the afternoon. Not to say you have to do that. Start with 1 in the morning and that's it. See how you feel. But don't take it too late in the day, because of course it'll affect your sleep. So you can also, let's say you do some cardio in the morning, take it for cardio, and then maybe you train a little bit early afternoon, you can take it for that as well. So it's a great all-around fat burner just for really anybody and everybody. I'd say if you're just starting out with fat burners, or if you're looking for something a little bit less intense and more versatile, because you can take this different times of the day and even on days you don't train, stuff like that, I would stick to double time. So it's got those same like fat burning benefits. It's got Capsumex in there. It's a cayenne pepper extract that helps with metabolism and whatnot. So, and then going on to stacking options, Dean, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, well, as far as stacking, because I always had a question myself with you on that. Are you just talking about what to stack it with as far as some of our other products?
Yeah, like would you stack double time with 7th Gear?
Yeah, no. So what we kind of talked about on the last webinar as well, if anybody watched that, you don't want to take other products that have caffeine and stimulants with any of the pre-workouts. And it's like the same thing for these fat burners. They obviously have caffeine and stimulants in them. So you don't want to stack them with another one of our products that has stimulants and caffeine. So I think I talked about this on the last webinar. You could take this, because I know some people aren't big pre-workout people, but you might want to take Hydraulic, which is our pre-workout that has no stimulants in it, and it's more of a pump product. So you could take this to get your boost of energy and the caffeine, and plus the fat burning ingredients in you, as well as take Hydraulic. So you could mix this in as a pre-workout as well, which I know a lot of people do. And of course you could take it with Demo Day and stuff like that, or whatever you want to do. Take it with the Grind, any of our other products like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the biggest thing. I would often recommend, because hydration is so key to, let's say if you're someone who doesn't like drinking plain water, they could do double time, and then they go do cardio, go do a workout. They could sip on the Grind during the workout. That's not necessarily stacking, but those are 2 products you can use in conjunction. And then also Hydraulic, as you mentioned. Some people ask us like, hey, if I don't want to take the capsule, can I break it open and put it into like a solution? You can do that, but if you just do it in plain water, it's probably going to taste really bad. And especially the Capsumex is kind of spicy because it's cayenne pepper. So I would definitely, if you're going to mix it into something, don't expect it to taste great, and hopefully mix it in something flavored. So that's just one thing I want to touch on with that. And the last thing we didn't mention was what to expect. So a lot of people are like, well, is this fat burner working yet? Like, what's happening? It's like, you got to realize fat loss and weight loss and all those things they take an extended period of time. You're going to be losing fat, losing weight over weeks on weeks, right? So it's not like you're going to take this fat burner and the next day be shredded. But you should feel the acute effects right away, right? The energy, the focus, the appetite suppression. Those are those things you're looking for to help you get through your day. And two of the key ingredients to help you focus, some people ask about this, is choline, which helps produce acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter, and then also N-acetyl L-tyrosine, another cool focus-based ingredient. So those are some of the things that, and there's also some ingredients in here that help with like water loss. So if you're someone that holds on to water, that can play a big role in the scale. So if you're holding on to a lot of water, it may look like you're not losing any weight, even though you are. So that's another thing that there's some stuff in there that helps you with just water loss in general. So Dean, do you want to cover anything, or we're going to go to fired?
No, I think we have everything. I would say too, real quick, and this isn't just double time, it's anything, any of the fat burners. You kind of touched on it too, is for anybody, especially if you're new to start like at a half dose. Just want to make sure everybody knows that too, because I think more so than any other type of product, even like people that aren't used to pre-workouts, obviously if you know, a pre-workout can hit somebody pretty hard if they're not used to it. But I always feel like, just through comments and stuff on social media, I feel like fat burners, more than anything else, if people aren't used to them and they take the full dose or whatever from the get-go, sometimes that's, people will feel funny or get sick or something like that. So I always suggest starting with half a dose and then just build up from there.
Yeah, the last thing too, based on getting sick, sometimes when you take a capsule on empty stomach, you can get sick. So if you do experience that, then maybe eat breakfast or eat a small snack and then take it, because it's not like you're negating the effects of it. You're still going to get the energy, the focus, and all that stuff. I don't want anyone to take this on empty stomach if their stomach is sensitive and then they end up getting sick. So, or feeling nauseous or whatever it may be, that could happen. So, and then we'll get into, everyone always asks us, what's the difference between double time and fired? So the next one we have is fired. And as the name suggests, it's more of a potent thermogenic. It's more geared towards those who aren't going to do fasted cardio or do some sort of workout, because it makes you sweat a lot, boost your metabolism. But the biggest thing is the only stimulant in double time is caffeine and hydrose, which is synthetic form of caffeine. Everyone knows it. It's in energy drinks. It's in pretty much, all sorts of products, but it's caffeine and hydrose. There's 250 milligrams per 2 caps. So for fired, we have 300 milligrams of stimulants in total. Now that doesn't just come from caffeine and hydrose. We have 150 milligrams of caffeine and hydrose plus 50 milligrams of dicaffeine malate. So those two kind of work synergistically to raise your energy and keep it elevated for longer. So fired is definitely not a product you want to take later in the day, because you're going to be up for a long time because of that extended release. And then the last stimulant we have in here is dynamine. Dynamine has been shown to work synergistically with caffeine to help raise energy levels and extend even longer. So those three are kind of like the triple threat of this energy boost. So if you're not feeling double time, you're one of those stim junkies who are like, man, I want something a little stronger. I want something a little that hits a little harder and lasts longer, then that might be fired. So these are two products that you could keep on hand, because maybe on the days you work out, you take fired, but then on the days you don't, you take double time, because you don't want to be at your office sweating up a storm because you just took fired and you're like the weird guy. I know Dean loves that, but you don't want to be like that weird guy who's like sweating armpit stains and stuff. So, and the biggest thing with fired, it's got GBB in it, which helps increase carnitine levels, which gets you really sweaty. So if you're wondering why you're sweating so much with fired, that's the ingredient that's doing it. It's got some other stuff in there to help with fat burning, like grains of paradise and Capsumax, but I just want to touch on that. So if people are like, well, what's the difference and why is fired have less caffeine, but it's stronger? It actually does have more stimulants. You just got to take into account all the different stimulants it has, and don't just look at caffeine, because caffeine is not the only stimulant that exists. So Dean, I'll let you talk about fired.
And Heather, out of the 3 stimulants, dynamine is the longest lasting, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Dynamine. And then obviously, so caffeine is the quickest, so it hits really hard fast. And then you have Infinergy, and then you have dynamine. So those are all 3 a little bit. What's cool about dynamine too is, when you're dieting, a lot of people are more irritable and they kind of have like a more poor mood. So dynamine actually kind of boosts your mood and has a mood elevating effect. So it's kind of a unique. So this is like for the more extreme case, like you're trying to get absolutely shredded. You need something to help you just kick up the last 4 weeks. This is not something you want to use year round all the time. That's not really its purpose. So.
And fired, we have dandelion root in it as well, right?
Yep. And buchu extract, both of those help with so we have buchu, dandelion, and juniper. Those all help with like water loss. So if you're someone really like, I'm gonna get on stage, I need to shed the last few pounds, the last few water, look more dry, I guess, and lean, that would be fired for sure.
Yeah.
But I know you've used it, Dean, and I know you said you like it a little bit more than double time, but you're also you've competed before and stuff like that. So I just why don't you just tell us your experience with that?
Yeah, I like fired, like Tracy, my wife likes double time better. Because like we said, it's more of an all around, not as hard hitting, I guess. Fat burner. Me, I like fired myself because like you said, it does make you sweat a little more, obviously. Some people love that. Not that sweating, I will point out too, because in fact, I saw somebody ask the question. I don't even know if it was in this for the post, but it might even been in one of our other Facebook groups. Somebody said they were taking fired, but they weren't really sweating. And they were equating that to like it not working. Sweating doesn't mean something's working or not working. It's just like if you're sweating, doesn't mean you're working harder than other people too. Some people are just sweaters, period. And like, you know what I mean? So you could be working harder than somebody else in the gym and not sweating as much because maybe that's just how you are. So, but some people love to sweat is my point. And that's why a lot of people like fire because it makes them feel that way. But it's a little bit more extreme, like we said. I think it's harder hitting, faster hitting. And then of course, obviously you get that effect though with like the dynamine and the Infinergy in there as well, like Heather said. So it is going to last longer. That's why we always suggest too, taking it more in the morning or earlier in the day. Fired is also something, again, depending on the time that you work out, you could stack it again with like hydraulic or take it as like a pre-workout. Just once again, do not take fired with like ignition switch or seventh gear or something like that already has, a bunch of other, because again, we have 300 milligrams of stimulants in this. You definitely do not want to mix that with another pre-workout with stimulants. So, but again, hydraulic is perfectly safe to take with that.
Yeah. And again, this is 2 caps. And one of the reasons we try to formulate both of these with 2 capsules so you can tailor the dose according to your needs. So if you wanted to start with 1 cap, which we always recommend, do that and see how you feel, because if you get great benefits, great effects from 1 capsule, you're going to save money and then you're gonna be able to use it for a little bit longer. So that's the biggest thing with that. And so the primary benefits of fired, you get long lasting energy, increased thermogenesis, which as Dean mentioned, normally equates to sweating. Another thing I want to touch on with sweating, it doesn't mean you're burning fat just because you're sweating a lot. Like that's just a side effect actually of GBB. It's not what it's intended to do. It just happens to some people. So yeah, don't get like thrown off if you're not sweating or if you're sweating a lot. It's just people react differently to different ingredients. And then water loss as well. Like I said, that leaner, drier look is what fired is for. So you kind of have that natural diuretic effect from different herbal extracts we put in there. So, and both of these have fully transparent labels. You can see exactly every ingredient and every dose. So if you guys are interested, we don't use prop blends. We don't do, hide behind anything, that you guys can see exactly what you're putting in your body. And we, third party test all of these as well. So, and then fired as well, you want to use it once per day. I think Dean already mentioned that. I suggest like morning, early afternoon. Early afternoon is like the biggest cutoff. Like I would definitely not go past that. And then also, we already mentioned with double time, it's split dosing. That's why it's called double time in case you want to do it twice per day. And then stacking options, as Dean said, hydraulic, the grind, things like that. Anything that's non-stim, go ahead and CLA, whatever you may be taking to promote with fat loss. That's where you want to do. So, and as a nice pre-workout stack, you could do fired and hydraulic in the morning. So the next thing I want to cover, the reason I wanted to tie this in, so we just covered the fat burners, and we'll go over questions at the very end about the fat burners, but a couple things I want to mention. We do have some other things that might help appetite suppression, and that's actual intelligence. That helps with focus, energy, and appetite suppression, but it's a lot more tame, and it's a lot more like, it's way less caffeine. So if you're someone who's very sensitive to these things, then I would try actual intelligence first and see how that does for you, before even moving to double time or fired. And the last thing is, a lot of people ask like, hey, what's the best fat burner? There is no best, number one. Number two, you need to identify what you're struggling with, because let's say you have really poor sleep at night because you're hungry and your cortisol levels are chronically elevated, then maybe you should look at Dozer because it's a sleep aid. And if you get better sleep, it might help with hunger and, body composition and stuff like that. Because if you have poor sleep, it's going to negatively affect everything. So physical performance, mental performance, how you feel, your mood, recovery, everything. So the best fat burner might be a sleep aid for you. So it really just depends, or maybe even farm fed if you can't hit your protein intake, whatever it is. So I just want to mention that. And before we cover the stacks, Dean, do you have anything?
Yeah, sleep's huge. And I'm should take my own advice because I'm a terrible sleeper as well. But it is, as bad as a sleeper as I am, I do know the importance of it. And it, like Heather said, it's like, I know, especially again, I just revert back to prep a lot because that's when I've always tried to get the leanest, obviously, to step on stage. But it's like the lack of sleep also will make people hold water and like, or even in fact, just inhibit weight loss a lot of times, even forget about just holding water. It's like, if your sleep is messed up, a lot of times your hormones get messed up, your cortisol levels are high. It just makes everything more complicated. So I can never, I guess, hit hard enough on like sleep and again, fluids, drinking enough water. I think those are like the two most underrated things. And they're probably the two things that people, mess up on a lot, including myself. It's like, but it's just, for everybody watching, it's like, try to get more sleep than you're getting, try to drink more water than you're drinking now. And all that stuff will help with everything else that goes into place as far as recomping your body and losing weight and so on. So.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, because the water thing is funny, because if you don't drink enough water, your body actually wants to hold on to more water. So the more water you drink, the more your body's like, okay, we're getting enough water, we can let go of the stuff that we're holding on to. So that's a very key thing. That's why a lot of people think, oh, well, if I drink more, doesn't that just make me hold more water? It's the opposite. If you drink less, your body's dehydrated, trying to survive, right? So it needs to hold on to that water so that it can survive. So definitely I like those points. And then just want to touch on, Carly knows this. So I think his name is Adam. He won our most shredded last year. And he looked absolutely crazy. And we asked all the participants who won, like, hey, what was your favorite supplement? He was like, oh, Dozer by far. So that was kind of one of the more surprising, but when you look at how important sleep is, it's not surprising. So definitely Dozer's not something you use every day, but if you want to get into a better sleep routine, it could be a tool that you use to help you develop those habits. So, okay. So moving on to the stacks. So we have a few stacks that we have on the site specifically for the challenge. We have the fat burn stack, the extreme results stack, and then the muscle gain stack. So obviously you got different goals here for different people. And the reason I want to tie this into it is because they almost all include fat burners except for the muscle gain stack, because someone asked me like, oh, should I take a fat burner if I'm trying to lose weight or gain muscle? And I was like, no, you definitely should not. So if anything, take GDA if you want to stay a little bit leaner and still put on weight. That'd probably be a better option. So just want to cover the fat burn stack, and then Dean can cover the extreme results. So the way I want to do this is just explain how to use them most optimally. So obviously double time, we already touched on this. Start with like one capsule in the morning before your first meal, and see how that goes. Maybe if you do cardio in the morning, use it before cardio. And then if you need another boost as the weeks go on later in the day, then take another capsule early afternoon. When I say early afternoon, I mean like 1 or 2 p.m. That's like my cutoff there. So that's how you'd use double time. And then the grind, that's obviously, you can sip on it anytime because it's non-stim. So if you're like having a sweet tooth, you can also like throw it in a blender with some ice, make a slushy, or you can, the best purpose though for it is during your workout. So whether that's cardio or weight training, sip on it during that time, at least 1 scoop, and then, fill up the shakers as much water as, you want for the flavor, and then go from there. And then obviously farm fed is a protein powder. That's great just to help you hit your protein intake. You can use it for different, purposes, whether that's pancakes, smoothies, yogurt, whatever it is. And that will just help you get your protein in. Ideally, you take it post-workout, but you don't have to. You could take it any time of day. It's just a high quality protein source that you can add in. So, and then Dean, you can touch on the extreme results stack.
Yeah, the extreme results stack is fired, which we just covered, the grind and farm fed. So like we said, fired is more of the extreme fat burner. Again, take it early in the morning, whether it's first thing in the morning or just early before, like early afternoon, like Heather's talked about as well. The grind, which is our amino product. So that again, most people, take that intra workout while they train or whatever. But again, you don't have to. You could, myself, I'll take it if I do fasted cardio in the morning. I take it later in the day when I train. But again, it's non-stimulant. It's just our EAA hydration formula. So you could take that any time of the day. And then farm fed is in this stack as well, which Heather just talked about, is our grass-fed whey isolate. So farm fed's great too, like we've talked about in past webinars, to hit your protein goals. I know a lot of people sometimes struggle hitting the protein goal, whether it's all from food or whatever. A shake, I wouldn't recommend somebody have a bunch of shakes throughout the day, but it's definitely a great tool to have a shake and help get that protein goal up, especially for guys. Girls could too if you want, but 2 scoops and and some almond milk or whatever you want to use. I can easily get 50 grams of protein in, in 2 minutes. So it's a super easy tool. Tons of different flavors we have, obviously, that taste great. So, and that's
also, I mean, not only does farm fed taste good, but like protein has been shown, like higher protein intakes help with appetite suppression. So if you are trying to lose weight, it may be advantageous to increase your protein intake as you go throughout that process to help curb your appetite. Sometimes protein powders aren't the most filling because they're just liquid calories, but like I said, you can use them in different things to add protein, but not to actually eat something and feel more full, whether it's like Greek yogurt or whatever. So just want to touch on that. So protein's great for muscle retention too. If you're losing weight, but you want to retain your muscle, you got to be having enough protein. And then on the grind, some people ask like, is there a max serving you recommend? So we recommend to take 1 to 2 servings a day. Like I said, typically during training, but you can, I would say up to like 4 scoops is probably the max. It's not like there's really a limit. It's just amino acids. So it's not like it's going to cause really any negative effects, but it's really, if you're drinking it all day, it could just, some of the flavors and sweeteners might bother your stomach a bit, but that's very individual. You just got to see how you feel. So for most people, I would say cap it at 1 to 2 servings. But if you want to go up to 3 or 4, that's kind of like the limit. So the last one, muscle gain stacks, this is a little different. If you're looking to put on muscle, put on weight. The triple threat here is hydraulic, demo day, and the grind. So obviously hydraulic's a non-stim pre. Purposely put that in there. It doesn't have stimulants, won't crush your appetite. So you take that obviously as a pre-workout on the days you resistance train. You don't need to take it on the days you do cardio. And then demo day is great to have either pre or intra workout to help fuel your workouts and add more calories. Not to say you can't take demo day when you're cutting. We've already touched on that before, but you can take it either way. But that's just a good way to add calories if people are struggling. And then the grind, intra workout, and then farm fed again. You could do farm fed or homemade, either one. Homemade has a little bit more calories in it because it's more of a meal, but it might make you feel too full. So farm fed's great to add to different shakes and smoothies to make your own like weight gainer at home and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the muscle gain stack. So yeah, that's pretty much all the stacks you have for the challenge. And if you guys ever have any questions about the stacks, how to use them, what else can you add to them, whatever it is, just please reach out to us and we'll help you guide you so you're not wasting your money on things that you may not need. I just want to touch on that. So if we have any questions, I think we could probably cover those.
Some that, I mean, I know I see a lot, and Heather, we honestly may ask you, these questions as well. This person said that they've taken fired many times. It says 2 max, but I really don't feel a sweat from it. I've even cycled it. Could it be me? And you're really good at answering this question.
Yeah, well, I think actually Dean touched on it. I mean, just because you're not sweating doesn't mean it's not working and doesn't mean you're not getting the benefits. So although we typically say, hey, you're probably going to sweat, that's a typical response. That doesn't mean everybody out there is going to sweat a lot. So, and for me, for example, I'm one of those people that I feel like I work hard in the gym, but I don't really sweat that much. Maybe I just don't work hard. I don't know, but I definitely don't sweat a lot, but I also have never taken fired. So it might be more sensitive to me and I might start sweating a lot because of that ingredient. But like I said, it doesn't mean it's not working for you. So I wouldn't say just because you cycle it, just because you do this and that. Yeah, that shouldn't matter too much. And like I said, you're still going to get the benefits. The whole sweating thing doesn't mean you're losing. You know how people put on like those sweatsuits and then they get on the sauna and then they're just losing a bunch of water. They're not actually losing like fat. So don't equate sweating to like losing weight.
Yeah, it's definitely not something to like gauge. Like there's guys in the gym that I've seen that are disgusting. They're sweating so much. You know what I mean? So, and it's like, that's what I talked about earlier. It's just like some people are just, they sweat way more than other people. But just because also it's like some of these products, if you don't feel like, I don't know, like for example, you're saying like, you don't feel, because I take, my caffeine tolerance is kind of high, so I can take different pre-workouts or take fat burners, and a lot of times I don't feel like a huge thing of energy, but that doesn't mean like Heather's saying, like just because you don't feel something certain that maybe some other people are feeling, that doesn't necessarily mean like it's not working, because you're still getting the benefits of those ingredients because you've obviously digested them or ingested them. So yeah, don't I want to be too caught up with I'm not sweating like a lot of people, so it's not working for me. You're still getting the benefits from it.
I think especially with these supplements, so although they do have caffeine and things that enhance your energy and normally you feel those things, there's other things in here that help with fat burn that you would never feel. The grains of paradise, you're not going to like feel your body getting warm and burning fat. Like that's kind of weird. Capsi Max, things like that that are in there. They're doing their effects, but you're not feeling them. Just like any other, I mean, there's other supplements. People take a multivitamin, they don't ask me like, hey, why don't I feel this multivitamin? It's because you're not going to feel it. So the only things that you really feel are the ones that are more stimulatory and things like that. So, and some of them are a little bit more subtle. So you may not notice it if you're not very like aware of like, your body and how you feel. So typically, so yeah.
Cool. This is a good one too. Should you take a fat burner if it's a rest day?
If you're struggling with energy levels, I would, but I think this totally depends on how you feel. And if you're struggling with your appetite and things like that, sometimes if people aren't busy, they're not in their workout, they're actually more likely to eat like snacky food or like, their appetite like gets a little more, they're more hungry and stuff like that. So, you definitely can. It just depends on, like I said, how you feel. And in that case too, I would do double time. So like, if you're one of those users who really likes Fired, but on the days you don't train, maybe have double time on hand so you can use that on the days you don't train. So you still get the fat burn benefits, but it's not as strong. Your nervous system isn't as taxed because you're not overloading it, things like that. So on those days, just go by how you feel. Like I couldn't really say that unless I knew, how that goes.
Yeah, because it also depends on what they're doing on the rest day as well. Like, because I know some people have, like what they call an active rest day, where even though they're not lifting, they still might do some cardio, even if it's not hard cardio. Maybe they go for a walk or something. So it's like you could still take it. It just kind of depends what you're doing. If you're laying around all day doing nothing, then maybe not. But like Heather said, because of the appetite suppressant type stuff in there as well, it may help you stick to your diet and stop you from like binge eating or something like that on your rest day as well.
Yeah. Also, one last thing is like Fire, just like we talked about 7th gear ignition switch or even hydraulic, Fire's not something I recommend taking every single day. That's like for those sessions where you need it and where you want to maximize that. I would, you can take double time every day. And even on the rest days, maybe do 1 capsule instead of 2 or things like that. So that's why it's almost nice to have both on hand. If you are someone who likes to use Fired, if not, then just have double time. But that's just something you can use them in conjunction like that. Just don't take them both on the same day don't take them in the same day. I guess that's all I'd say.
You guys hit on this, but I think it's good to circle back at least one more time about Fired and taking AI. This person wants to know, is it okay to take them separately at different times during the day or at the same time?
So I would never recommend stacking 2 stims at the same time. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't take them in the same day. So if you want to take 1 capsule Fired in the morning for your cardio, and then, mid-afternoon, you need a little more boost or focus or whatever energy, you could take like a capsule or 2 of actual intelligence later in the day around 2-3 p.m. So that's the way I would use those 2. But you just got to watch your caffeine intake. I mean, the more you keep stacking things, the more you keep, I have energy drink here, I got a coffee here, I got AI over here, I got Fired. It's like your caffeine intake's about to be 1 gram and you're going to be stuck. So you can use them, just be conscious of that. So
I mean, I'm laughing because that's literally what it looks like in front of me. I need to watch my caffeine intake. If you came down here right now, you'd be like, really?
I was talking to Brittany and Lydia and they were like, yeah, I get my Starbucks order, but they don't take pre-workout, but they're like almost at a 600 mgs in their Starbucks order. And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, but you don't take ignition switch that has 150? Like that's.
They're like, no. I'm the same way, but that's just funny. Dean,
But just be conscious of that. I mean, these are all tools and caffeine is just one of those things that everybody loves, but you build up a tolerance and then you don't feel it. That's another thing. Going back to what Dean said, you don't feel it. It's like, maybe you need to cycle off, and that's a tough conversation to have. And it's a tough thing to do, but sometimes you gotta be honest with yourself and it might be better for your health. So.
Yeah, this is like a side kind of a side topic, but what you're talking about, I was on the phone with John earlier here from Exercise. We were talking about energy drinks in general. And that's what I said. I'm like, I can drink an energy drink and like doze off at my desk. It's like at this point, it's like now I'm almost drinking them because I think some of them taste good. So, so you build up the tolerance, and that's what I was saying. It's like, just because you may not feel something doesn't mean you're still not getting the effects from it. So
also one last thing is watch if you are an energy drink consumer, or even a coffee connoisseur or whatever it is, different, roast and different types of energy drinks have different caffeine content. So if you do a dark roast, it actually has less caffeine than a blonde roast. So you're like, hey, I do 1 cup of coffee. Well, what's that cup of coffee consist of? What's in it? And energy drinks like a Bang, or I think a Reign has like 300 milligrams of caffeine, but then like a Monster Ultra Zero has like 150, 160. So if you do want to just scale down your caffeine intake, maybe make some different choices and different decisions. If you do want that taste and experience. So, because I know that's a big thing. People just like the taste, they like the routine. So, yeah.
Another one here, because I know, you guys talk about cardio a lot, taking these before cardio or whatever it may be. Somebody asks, is it okay to take either of these fat burners before weight training?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the biggest thing, which we didn't touch on, which we should have, is timing. So because it's a capsule, it takes a little bit longer to get in your system. So at least take it like 20 to 30 minutes before you train, whether that's cardio or doing weight training. So, but if you still want those benefits of the weight training or the benefits of a pre-workout, I should say, take hydraulic with it, whether that's even just one scoop. Do that same time, take hydraulic, take the fat burner, 20 to 30 minutes before you train, and then you can go train. And that will kind of give you the best of both worlds. I know some companies, they make actually fat burning pre-workouts, but they kind of compromise because you're putting it into one product. Whenever you do that, and when you're putting two products into one, you kind of compromise on either end. So it's almost better to stack them to get the benefits of both. So that's, Dean, do you want to touch on anything of that?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of hit on it earlier, just when we were talking about the stacking. As long as you could definitely take it before weight training, just whatever you do, don't stack it with ignition switch or seventh gear.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it for weight training, either take it by itself, or if you do want to take some sort of pre-workout, like Heather said, only take it with hydraulic.
And you said something there that made me think of a question that somebody asked. Oh, when you were saying, how long before to take the capsule before like a workout, is there a certain amount of time that, this stays in your system? Because somebody did ask in this Q&A that she understands not to take these too late at night. What is the estimated length of time it stays in your system?
This depends on the person. So some people are actually, which Dean is probably one of them, is a rapid metabolizer of caffeine. So like Dean can drink a caffeine or like an energy drink, and then all of a sudden in a couple hours, his body's already ripped through that and he can go to bed. Whereas other people, it stays in their system longer, and they're a slower metabolizer. So they get that extended effects. Even if you don't feel the energy, the caffeine might still be in your body and still be expressing its effects. So your sleep quality may diminish, even if you can fall asleep. So, I mean, if you're one of those people who like, yeah, I pound energy drinks and I go to bed in an hour, your sleep quality may still be affected because of those reasons. But this is very dependent on the person. And one thing, obviously fire is going to last longer because it has those different stimulants, whereas double time would it would be a little less. So it also depends on which one you're taking, how much you took, and things like that. So I couldn't answer that. I couldn't say, hey, in an hour, you're good to go. Because that's just not how it works. And everybody's different. So this is just based on how you feel and who you are and stuff like that. Maybe previous experiences with other products.
If you have anything to add to that, Dean, but I was also going to say, if you saw any other questions, because a lot of these that I'm looking at, the last four are ones that you guys covered already, even in the Q&A. So if you want to ask anything.
No, I'm just looking at some of the ones we had. I
Just
don't
for
know.
this one, I think I see on this chat says this is not on topic really, but if they're 175 pounds semi-lean and they're averaging 120 grams of protein, I would get that up to 170 at least. Not at least, but that's like, the one you want to be at, maybe 150 to 170. And ways you can do that, Dean is an expert at this, is, adding the protein shakes, different snacks that are high in protein, things like that. Dean, do you have any tips on how to like get more protein in throughout the day?
Well, I agree too. Like I'm a big fan. And again, it's like a social media debate where like, I'm just a fan of trying to tell people, like, if you are working out and you're trying to retain muscle or build muscle for that matter, I'm always one that says, try to get at least, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And what I meant when I said it's like a debate, some people will say like, no, it's lean mass. Well, 90% of people out there don't know what their actual lean body mass is unless you're going to get tested. So safe, it just, like you said, if somebody weighs 200 pounds, I tell them try to get 200 grams of protein a day. If you're a little less, like 180 or whatever, that's not going to be terrible, but at least get up there. And then, yeah, as far as just getting it in, I mean, obviously the easiest thing is a shake or look for stuff that may be, lower carb, lower fat and higher protein type snacks. But like, like Heather said too, you can add protein powder is so versatile. And especially if you go with something like that's just like a vanilla, So if you have like a vanilla farm fed, you can throw that into almost anything. Like I like to always take like a low fat or even fat free Greek yogurt, which if people are familiar with Greek yogurt, it's a lot of times it kind of tastes like shit, some of it, but like if you have like a vanilla or whatever Greek yogurt or even a flavored one now, so there's so many that are coming out, but they're very low in carbs, very low in fat, and they're already pretty high in protein for like yogurt. Some of them are like 19 grams of protein for like a serving. You throw like a scoop of farm fed in there, you just added like another 20 something grams of protein. So you have this little, and it's not that much, you have this little bowl of yogurt, mix it all up, and now you got like a 35, 40, 45 gram, little snack right there of protein that's high in protein, very low in carbs, very low in fat and calories even. So just little things like that. Get creative with protein powder as well. It's just such an easy thing to like toss into anything.
I think a big thing too for me that helps is just meal prepping, and especially meal prepping protein sources. So whether that's cooking your chicken in bulk, cooking your ground beef, ground turkey, things like that, so they're ready to go. So every time you are about to have a meal, something's already cooked, and you don't have to have an excuse of, I'm just going to go order out on something. So I think meal prep is prepping in general is one of your biggest tools. You can just be ready for the day or ready for the week or whatever it is. So prepping, especially protein sources.
That's what I say. Like that's like the key thing. I think we talked about it I think one of the very first webinars we did, maybe not me and you, maybe it was the one we did before, which just about being in prep, like you talked about, or prepping food, how important it is, because the biggest way people fail during anything, not just this transformation or any dieting type or life changing phase here, is the diet itself, the nutrition. I hate the word diet because it's short-lived, but the nutrition part is what most people fail at. And the reason being is not being ready, not being prepared. So not only do you have to have your meals prepared, which is such a key thing, but like Heather just said, having protein sources, I think, is the most important thing. Obviously, more important than any of the three macronutrients. So if you can have, if you're going to grab something, you want to have some sort of protein source handy that you can grab out of the refrigerator, grab out of the pantry, something that's higher in protein than it is like fats and carbs. Because if you do not have protein sources available and prepped and ready or something to go, you're going to grab basically processed sugar, processed carbs, and that's like, you might as well just slap it on your love handles. I mean, that's the problem, and
it's true.
Yeah, it's the first thing you grab. What are you going to grab? Like pretzels or something? You know what I mean? Like you're going to grab crappy food as opposed to having some protein sources prepped and ready to go.
Yeah, no, and I think even if people who hate meal prepping, they're like, man, that is the last thing I want to do. As long as you meal prep your protein sources, you're going to be setting yourself up for success. And the last thing on protein, I know Dean talked about it with the grams per pound of body weight or whatever that is. The only caveat is if you're like, okay, hey, I'm 400 pounds and I'm really overweight. So, I mean, you don't need to get 400 grams of protein. I think in that case, in that scenario, so if you're semi-lean, if you're lean, stick with the 1 gram per pound, keep it simple. But let's say you're 400 pounds, but you're like, man, I want to get down to, I mean, who knows? Like, let's say you got a huge weight loss goal. You're like, man, I want to get down to 300 or 250, whatever it is. Aim for that many grams of protein to your goal body weight. So if you're 300 pounds, you want to get down to 250, aim for 250 grams of protein. So it kind of gives you some buffer. You don't need to be, you're not like Ronnie Coleman who needs like 400 grams of protein a day. So it's the idea or the concept of increasing your protein intake is kind of what matters the most in that scenario. So, but I understand, Dean, that not everyone's going to go get their lean mass tested and whatever, like you don't need to do that. It's just, there's just some scenarios where you're like, man, if you're super overweight and know it, and you're like, but I want to get down to this body weight, then aim for that body weight in protein.
I'm glad you said that because I should have covered that. But yeah, if you're 350 pounds and you're trying to lose 100 pounds, by all means, you don't need to go have 300 grams of protein.
Yeah. But is there anything else we want to touch on that? We kind of got off topic. Oh no, it's just protein. There's the protein question. So
yeah, if you guys have anything else to cover, that was really it for the questions that may have not been covered or just loop back around that I saw more than once. So Heather or Dean, do you have anything else?
No, I mean, for me, like the most important thing is just like we talked about, we covered it in the supplement overview and we covered it already at the beginning of this call, is a fat burner from any company is not, there's no miracle drug out there, like that's going to be a fat burner. Obviously you can go get prescribed other things that will probably help you lose weight from a doctor. But I'm talking about over the counter, you know, from supplement companies, fat burner. They're not going to be a miracle drug. They do help, but again, I can't stress enough, you have to have everything else in order. And like, you know, Heather said, you can't sit there and eat cake and Pop-Tarts and then go like, oh, this fat burner doesn't work. It's like, you have to have the diet in check, the cardio in check, working out, sleep, water, everything in line. And then you use that as a tool to help. I love to use the word assist, because I think that's what it does. It just assists you in shedding some weight by numerous reasons, whether it's, you know, giving you the energy to get through the workouts or get through the cardio, whether it's the appetite suppressant, whether, you know, whatever it is, there's multiple ingredients in these fat burners that will assist you in losing weight and trying to reach your goal. But again, everything else has to be in place first.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that he touched on all the points, and the biggest thing is, you know, we have this transformation challenge going, and majority of these webinars, at least I would assume, is on training, nutrition, and then other tactics to help you be successful. It's less on supplements, and we're even a supplement company. We could pitch and sell, you know, supplements all day long, but if you're not doing the other things, you're not going to reach your goals, and then we're not really helping you. So, I mean, trust me, if we found the miracle drug that helped everybody lose fat without doing anything, I mean, I think we'd be rich. We probably wouldn't be on this webinar. But sorry, we have not found that yet. I'll keep looking. But yep, that's all I got. And if you guys have any questions, like I said, please reach out. We'll help you in any way we can. Whether it's customer service, Dean's Instagram, my Instagram, whatever it is. We'd love to help.
Yeah. With that said, tomorrow night, 8:30 is the weekly webinar. Myself, Seth, Dean, and Justine. Oh, surprise! If you remember, you're on that too. We'll all be on that webinar. So if you have questions, there's a post in the Facebook group that Brittany put up. Go ask the questions. I'm going to write them down for everyone beforehand. But as always, thank you, especially thank you, Dean and Heather, for taking time out of your day. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Yes.